Part 1, Lecture 2. How shall we ever be able to think about the oft-named relation between thought and poesy, so long as we do not know what is called thinking and what calls for thinking, and therefore cannot think about what poesy is? We modern men presumably have not the slightest notion how thoughtfully the Greeks experienced their lofty poetry, their works of art. No, not experienced, but let them stand there in the presence of their radiant appearance. Yet this much might be clear to us right now. We're not dragging Holderlin's words into our lecture merely as a quotation from the realm of the poetic statement, which will enliven and beautify the dry progress of thinking. To do so would be to debase the poetic word. Its statement rests on its own truth. This truth is called beauty. Beauty is a fateful gift of the essence of truth, and here truth means that disclosure of what keeps itself concealed. The beautiful is not what pleases, but what falls within that fateful gift of truth, which comes to be when that which is eternally non-apparent, and therefore invisible, attains its most radiantly apparent appearance. We are compelled to let the poetic word stand in its truth, in beauty. And that does not exclude, but on the contrary includes, that we think the poetic word. When we appropriate Holderlin's words specifically for the realm of thought, we must of course be careful not to equate unthinkingly Holderlin's poetic statement with what we are starting out to think about and call most thought-provoking. What is stated poetically and what is stated in thought are never identical, but there are times when they are the same. Those times when the gulf separating poesy and thinking is a clean and decisive cleft. This can occur when poesy is lofty and thinking profound. Holderlin understood the matter well, as we gather from the two stanzas of the poem entitled Socrates and Alcibiades. Why, holy Socrates, must you always adore this young man? Is there nothing greater than he? Why do you look on him lovingly, as on a god? The second stanza gives the answer. Who the deepest has thought, loves what is most alive. Who has looked at the world, understands youth at its height, and wise men in the end often incline to beauty. We are concerned here with the line, who has most deeply thought, loves what is most alive. It's all too easy in this line to overlook the truly telling and thus sustaining words, the verbs. To notice the verb, we now stress the line in a different way that will sound unfamiliar to the common hearer. Who the deepest has thought, loves what is most alive. Standing in the closest vicinity, the two verbs thought and loves form the center of the line. Inclination reposes in thinking. Curious rationalism which bases love on thinking, and an unpleasant kind of thinking which is about to become sentimental. But there is no trace of any of this in that line. What the line tells we can fathom only when we are capable of thinking. And that is why we ask, what is called thinking, and what does call for it? We shall never learn what is called swimming, for example, or what it calls for, by reading a treatise on swimming. Only the leap into the river tells us what is called swimming. The question, what is called thinking, can never be answered by proposing a definition of the concept thinking, and then diligently explaining what is contained in that definition. In what follows, we shall not think about what thinking is. We remain outside that mere reflection which makes thinking its object. Great thinkers, first Kant and then Hegel, have understood the fruitlessness of such reflection. That's why they had to attempt to reflect their way out of such reflection. How far they got, and where it took them, are questions that will give us much to think about at the proper juncture along our way. In the West, thought about thinking has flourished as logic. Logic has gathered special knowledge concerning a special kind of thinking. This knowledge concerning logic has been made scientifically fruitful only quite recently in a specialized science that calls itself logistics. It is the most specialized of all specialized sciences. In many places, above all in the Anglo-Saxon countries, logistics is today considered the only possible form of strict philosophy, because its results and procedures yield an assured profit for the construction of the technological universe. In America and elsewhere, logistics as the only proper philosophy of the future is thus beginning today to seize power over the spirit. Now that logistics is in some suitable way joining forces with modern psychology and psychoanalysis, and with sociology, the power structure of future philosophy is reaching perfection. But this confirmation is in no way of man's making, or within his power. Rather, These disciplines are in faithful submission to a power which comes from far away, and for which the Greek word poesis, poesy, and techne, technology, may still be the appropriate names, provided they signify for us, who are thinking, that which gives food for thought. Summary and transition. The summary and transition at the end of Lecture 1 concerned three things: the relatedness of thinking to science, the relation between teaching and learning, and thinking as a handicraft. We refrain from repeating the 3 points, and will try instead to clarify a few questions and reflections concerning that transition which have been brought up from various sides. When we decide to look for the essential nature of contemporary science and the essence of modern technology, this approach posits science as something in the highest sense worthy of thought. The significance of science is ranked higher here than in the traditional view, which sees in science merely a phenomenon of human civilization. For the essence of technology is not anything human. The essence of technology is above all not anything technological. The essence of technology lies in what from the beginning and before all else gives food for thought. It might then be advisable, at least for the time being, to talk and write less about technology and give more thought to where its essence lies, so that we might find first a way to it. The essence of technology pervades our existence in a way which we have barely noticed so far. This is why in the preceding lecture, precisely at a juncture which almost demanded a reference to the technological world, we kept silent about technology. It now turns out that the demands made here on you, the students, have been excessive for the beginning of our journey. We have called thinking the handicraft par excellence. Thinking guides and sustains every gesture of the hand. We were talking about the cabinet maker's craft. It could be objected that even the village cabinet maker works with machines nowadays. It could be pointed out that today gigantic industrial factories have risen alongside the craftsmen's workshops, and in fact have been there for quite some time. Inside the factories, working men pull the same lever day and night for 8 to 10 hours at a stretch, and working women push the same button. The point's correct. But in this case, and in this form, it has not yet been thought out. The objection falls flat, because it has heard only half of what the discussion has to say about handicraft. We chose the cabinet maker's craft as our example, assuming it would not occur to anybody that this choice indicated any expectation that the state of our planet could, in the foreseeable future, or indeed ever, be changed back into a rustic ideal. The cabinet maker's craft was proposed as an example for our thinking because of the common usage of the word craft is restricted to human activities of that sort. However, it was specifically noted that what maintains and sustains even this handicraft is not the mere manipulation of tools, but the relatedness to wood. But where in the manipulations of the industrial worker is there any relatedness to such things as shapes slumbering within wood? This is the question you were meant to run up against, though not to stop there. For as long as we raise questions only in this way, we are still questioning from the standpoint of the familiar and previously customary handicraft. What about the lever? What about the button, which the worker manipulates? Levers and buttons have long existed, even on the workbenches of an old-fashioned craftsman's shop. But the lever and button in the manipulations of the industrial worker belong to a machine. And where does the machine, such as a power generator, belong? Modern technology is not constituted by, and does not consist in, the installation of electric motors and turbines and similar machinery. That sort of thing can, on the contrary, be erected only to the extent to which the essence of modern technology has already assumed dominion. Our age is not a technological age because it is the age of the machine. It is an age of the machine because it is the technological age. But so long as the essence of technology does not closely concern us in our thought, we shall never be able to know what the machine is. We shall not be able to tell what it is to which the industrial worker's hand is related. We shall not be able to make out what kind of manual work, of handicraft, these manipulations are. And yet, merely to be able to ask such questions, we must have already caught sight of what is commonly meant by handicraft in the light of its essential references. Neither the industrial workman nor the engineers, let alone the factory proprietor, and least of all the state, can know at all where modern man lives when he stands in some relatedness or other to the machine and machine parts. None of us know as yet what handicraft modern man in the technological world must carry on. Must carry on even if he is not a worker in the sense of the worker at the machine. Neither Hegel nor Marx could know it yet, nor could they ask why their thinking, too, still had to move in the shadow of the essential nature of technology. And so they never achieved the freedom to grasp and adequately think about this nature. Important as the economic, social, political, moral, and even religious questions may be, which are being discussed in connection with technological labor or handicraft, none of them reach to the core of the matter. That matter keeps itself hidden in the still unthought nature of the way in which anything that is under the dominion of technology has any being at all. And that such matters have remained unthought is indeed first of all due to the fact that the will to action, which here means the will to make and be effective, has overrun and crushed thought. Some of us may recall the statement of the first lecture that so far man has acted too much and thought too little. However, the reason why thought has failed to appear is not only, and not primarily, that man has cultivated thought too little, but because what is to be thought about, what properly gives food for thought, has long been withdrawing. Because this withdrawal prevails, that for which the craft of technological manipulation reaches out remains hidden. This withdrawal is what properly gives food for thought, what is most thought-provoking. Perhaps we notice now more readily that this most thought-provoking thing, in which the essence of modern technology also keeps itself hidden, appeals to us constantly and everywhere. Indeed, what is most thought-provoking is even closer to us than the most plausible closeness of our everyday handiwork, and yet it withdraws. Hence our need and necessity, first of all, to hear the appeal of what is most thought-provoking. But if we are to perceive what gives us food for thought, we must for our part get underway to learn thinking. Whether, by way of this learning, though never by means of it, we shall attain relatedness to what is most thought-provoking, is something altogether out of the hands of those who practice the craft of thinking. What we can do in our present case, or anyway can learn, is to listen closely. To learn listening, too, is the common concern of student and teacher. No one is to be blamed, then, if he is not yet capable of listening. But by the same token, you must concede that the teacher's attempt may go wrong in that, where he happens not to go wrong, he must often resign himself to the fact that he cannot lay before you in each instance all that should be stated. On the other hand, you will make close listening essentially easier for yourselves if you will rid yourselves in time of a habit which I shall call one-track thinking. The dominion of this manner of perception is so vast today that our eyes can barely encompass it. The expression one track is chosen on purpose. Track has to do with rails with technology. We would be making matters too easy for ourselves if we simply took the view that the dominion of one-track thinking has grown out of human laziness. This one-track thinking, which is becoming ever more widespread in various shapes, is one of those unsuspected and inconspicuous forms mentioned earlier in which the essence of technology assumes dominion, because that essence wills and therefore needs absolute univocity. In the preceding lecture, it was said that Socrates was the purest thinker of the West, while those who followed had to run for shelter. There comes the horrified retort. But what about Plato, Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, Leibniz, Kant, Nietzsche? Dare we reduce these thinkers so much in comparison with Socrates? But our questioner has failed to hear what was also said. All great Western thinkers after Socrates, with all their greatness. Someone, then, could still be the purest thinker without being one of the greatest. That would give us here much to think about. For that reason, the remark about Socrates began with the words, "An as yet hidden history still keeps the secret why all great thinkers after Socrates with all their greatness." We hear something of Socrates, the purest thinker. We fail to hear the rest. And then along the one track of something half heard, we travel on right into being horrified at such one-sidedly dogmatic statements. Things are similar with the conclusion of the second lecture. There we said that our way remains outside that mere reflection which makes thinking its object. How can anyone make such a statement after he has for 2 solid hours spoken of nothing else but thinking? However, to reflect on thinking and to trace thinking and thought are perhaps not altogether the same. We must give thought to what reflection means.